Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to SFF180. It is Monday morning, September the 6th, and time once again for the mailbag. I hope you guys have had a good week and a good weekend. Mine has been good. So, how has everybody's first week-ish, of Space Opera September been going? Mine's gone, I'd say, pretty well, reasonably well. By the end of this week, I should have or later, the latter half of this week, hopefully I should have the first of my SOS reviews up on the channel for you guys for this year. However, the first review that is going to be posted this week is not for that. It's going to be for the very last book that I read in August, which is a most unusual horror novel, shall we say. So I thought I'd go ahead and get that up and then proceed with SOS stuff. But it's good reading. Been a good reading week, I would have to say. And so hopefully this week will be even better with that. So without further ado, we're going to continue. But first, we need to go ahead and figure out which of you lucky people has won the Shards of Earth giveaway. All right, so let's check this out. As always, we're going to do it in the very low-tech process. Let's see. Everyone's names is in here. Thank you all so much to everyone who entered. Thank you everybody who sent me pet pictures. That was really awesome. But the moment of truth has arrived, and the book goes to... it goes to Edwin Cabrera. So thank you very much, Edwin. Thank you, everybody else. Congratulations, everybody else who entered the giveaway. And I'll go ahead and I'll get that out in the mail to you on Tuesday, Edwin. All right. So there you have it. Now, on to the books. It is a regular-sized mailbag this week. I have 3 physicals, maybe about 5 or 6 e-arcs. I'm not entirely sure. So this isn't going to be a big Peter Jackson-sized epic like last time. Let's see what we have, shall we? Starting out with the physicals, this feels like a nice chunky hardcover from the fine folks at Harper Voyager. And this week we are starting out with the finished copy in hardcover of Monica Byrne's new novel, The Actual Star. This comes out next week on the 14th. And it says David Mitchell's Cloud Atlas meets Octavia Butler's Earthseed series in this masterful science fiction epic from acclaimed author Monica Byrne, who wrote The Girl in the Road a few years back. It says, Byrne writes boldly and precisely with deep emotion. She weaves elements of science fiction and speculative fiction with myth, spirituality, and philosophical speculation, all while creating a page-turning story. The Actual Star is a multi-generational saga spanning 2 millennia, from the collapse of the ancient Maya to a far-future utopia on the brink of civil war, telling 3 powerful tales, all of them converging in the same cave in the Belizean jungle. Braided together are the stories of a pair of teenage twins who ascend the throne of a Maya kingdom, a young American woman on a trip of self-discovery in Belize, and 2 dangerous charismatics vying for the leadership of a new religion and racing toward a confrontation that will determine the fate of the few humans left on Earth after massive climate change. In each era, a reincarnated trinity of souls navigates the entanglements of tradition and progress, sister and stranger, and love and hate, until all of their age-old questions about the nature of existence converge deep underground, where only in complete darkness can they truly see. Past, present, and future, gender identity, science versus religion, these are constructs we take for granted, but what do they really mean? It says The Actual Star is a feast of ideas about where humanity came from, where we are now, and where we're going, and how in every age the same forces that drive us apart also bind us together. And so there you have it. It will be out on September the 14th. Literary SF, literary speculative fiction from Monica Byrne, The Actual Star. And this next one is a white envelope, so I'm thinking it comes from Macmillan. And it is. This is in from Tor, and it is the finished hardcover copy of a book called Mordu. The author is Alex Phoebe. This comes out also next week on the 14th, and I believe this is a book that has already been out for a little while in the UK. Award-winning, critically acclaimed author Alex Phoebe makes his speculative fiction debut with Mordu. Released, last year in the UK to glowing praise. It's a tour de force fantasy that takes readers to a fantastic urban setting unlike any other. A city that sprang from the corpse of God, once known as Mordu, now simply called Mordu. Okay, well, I like it. In the slums of the sea-battered city, a young boy called Nathan Treves lives with his parents, eking out a meager existence by picking treasures from the living mud and the half-formed, short-lived creatures it spawns, until one day his desperate mother sells him to the mysterious Master of Mordu. The Master derives his magical power from feeding on the corpse of God. But Nathan, despite his fear and lowly station, has his own strength, and it is greater than the Master has ever known. Great enough to destroy everything the Master has built, if only Nathan can discover how to use it. As the Master begins to move against him, Nathan has to fight his way through the betrayals, secrets, and vendettas of the city where God was murdered, and darkness reigns. Okay. Sounds very China Mieville, and also with some hints, perhaps. There's a book called Towing Jehovah by, I believe, is Morrow? I think the author, is it William Morrow? Or I have to look that up. But it seems to be a similar sort of satire to that. And so, yeah, this will be out. I'm intrigued. You know, I like them weird. I like weird stuff. So this sounds very up my alley. And so, yeah, next Tuesday, September the 14th from Tor, Mordu by Alex Phoebe. And finally, we have this box in from Random Penguin. Okay, then, this is the finished copy in hardcover of a book called Purgatory's Shore, and it is the first volume in a series called Artillerymen, and it's by Taylor Anderson, and this is set in the same universe as his Destroyermen series, which I don't know anyone who's read it yet, but they must be very popular because they ran for 15 volumes. And now this is the start of a new series, which may itself go 15 more. But it's an alternate universe kind of a thing. Let's see. Gosh, what can I say about it? On their way to fight in the Mexican-American War, a group of American soldiers is swept away to a strange and deadly alternate Earth. In this thrilling new adventure, the United States, 1847, a disparate group of young American soldiers is bound to join General Winfield Scott's campaign against Santa Anna at Veracruz during the Mexican-American War. They never arrive, or rather, they arrive somewhere else. The untried, idealistic soldiers are mostly replacements, really a handful of infantry, artillery, dragoons, and a few mounted riflemen with no unified command, and they've been shipwrecked on a terrible different Earth, full of monsters and unimaginable enemies. And it all kind of goes on from there, and I imagine that there's, lots of guns and carnage and guys being eaten by monsters, hopefully, and stuff like that. So, big action-adventure series, the first in a new saga, the Artillerymen saga, Purgatory's Shore, by Taylor Anderson, and I suspect it may be out this week or the next, from Ace in hardcover. Okay, so that is it for the physicals this week. Now I have, like I said, a small handful of e-arcs, and we're starting out with one that I'm pretty excited by, to be honest with you. This is a book called Cloud Cuckoo Land. The author is Anthony Doerr, and this is more of a piece of literary fiction, but it's this particular one is spec fic. But Anthony Doerr, his previous novel was called All the Light We Cannot See, and it's a historical novel that won the Pulitzer Prize. And so now this one, it's interesting. Have you ever noticed how literary writers, when they kind of dabble in spec fic a little bit, they are really fond of these spanning the centuries kind of storylines, right? Like, oh, this one's in the past, but it's also in the present day. And then it's thousands of years. We just kind of had that with the actual star. And now we're getting something similar with Cloud Cuckoo Land. It says, set in Constantinople in the 15th century, in a small town in present-day Idaho, and on an interstellar ship decades from now, Anthony Doerr's gorgeous third novel is a triumph of imagination and compassion. A soaring story about children on the cusp of adulthood in worlds in peril, who find resilience, hope, and a book. In Cloud Cuckoo Land, Doerr has created a magnificent tapestry of times and places that reflects our vast interconnectedness, with other species, with each other, with those who lived before us, and with those who will be here after we're gone. 13-year-old Anna, an orphan, lives inside the formidable walls of Constantinople in a house of women who make their living embroidering the robes of priests. Restless, insatiably curious, Anna learns to read, and in this ancient city, famous for its libraries, she finds a book, the story of Aethon, who longs to be turned into a bird so that he can fly to a utopian paradise in the sky. This she reads to her ailing sister as the walls of the only place she has known are bombarded in the great siege of Constantinople. Outside the walls is Omir, a village boy miles from home, conscripted with his beloved oxen into the invading army. His path and Anna's will cross. 500 years later, in a library in Idaho, octogenarian Zeno, who learned Greek as a prisoner of war, rehearses 5 children in a play adaptation of Aethon's story, preserved against all odds through centuries. Tucked among the library shelves is a bomb planted by a troubled idealistic teenager, Seymour. This is another siege, and, in a not-so-distant future on the interstellar ship Argos, Constance is alone in a vault, copying on scraps of sacking the story of Aethon, told to her by her father. She has never set foot on our planet. Like Marie Lauer and Werner in All the Light We Cannot See, Anna, Omir, Seymour, and Zeno, and Constance are dreamers and outsiders who find resourcefulness and hope in the midst of gravest danger. Their lives are gloriously intertwined. Dor's dazzling imagination transports us to worlds so dramatic and immersive that we forget for a time our own. Dedicated to the librarians then, now, and in the years to come, Cloud Cuckoo Land. By the way, that phrase, I just found it's right in the beginning of the book. Cloud Cuckoo Land came from a comedy by Aristophanes. So it's not like a recent term. It goes back. Cloud Cuckoo Land is a beautiful and redemptive novel about stewardship of the book, of the earth, and of the human heart. So there you have it, out on the 28th of September. Seems to be a very ambitious book. Now, next up, we are jumping ahead to November the 2nd. We have a couple of books on the 2nd for you guys. First, we have Brothers of the Wind by Tad Williams. This is a new novella set in the world of Austin Ard. It's a short novel that continues the saga that inspired a generation of fantasists. Pride often goes before a fall, but sometimes that prideful fall is so catastrophic that it changes history itself. Among the immortal Sethi of Austin Ard, none are more beloved and admired than the 2 sons of the ruling family, Steady Hakatri and his proud and fiery younger brother, Inaluki. Inaluki, who will one day become the undead Storm King. The younger brother makes a bold, terrible oath that he will destroy the deadly Hidohebhi, a terrifying monster, but instead drags his brother with him into a disaster that threatens not just their family, but all the Sethi, and perhaps all of humankind as well. Set 1,000 years before the events of William's Dragonbone Chair, the tale of Inaluki's tragic boast and what it brings is told by Pamon Kes, Hakatri's faithful servant. Kes is not one of the Sethi, but a member of the enslaved changeling race, and his loyalty has never before been tested. Now he must face the terrible black dragon at his master's side, then see his own life changed forever in a mere instant by Inaluki's rash, selfish promise. And that is Brothers of the Wind by Tad Williams, sort of a prequel, as it were, to Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, and that will be available on November the 2nd. Now, next up, also on November the 2nd, we have The God of Lost Words by A.J. Hackwith. To save the Library of the Unwritten in Hell, former librarian Claire and her allies may have to destroy it first. This is the 3rd volume in the series that began with The Library of the Unwritten. It says, Claire, Reikishiro, Angel Raimi, and muse-turned-librarian Brevity have accomplished the impossible by discovering the true nature of unwritten books. But now that the secret is out, in its quest for power, hell will be coming for every wing of the library. So, I don't want to read any more so as to avoid more spoilers, but this is The God of Lost Words by A.J. Hackwith, and it's out on November the 2nd. And finally, also on November the 2nd, so 3 books for that day, this comes in from Daw, and it's another new book by my buddy Marshall Ryan Maresca, who writes these things faster than I can keep up. It's crazy. But this is the beginning of a new Maridane cycle, and it's called An Unintended Voyage. And it says, moving outside the city of Maraudane, this new novel follows a lone member of the Maraudane Constabulary as she navigates a new but just as dangerous city. Sergeant Corey Welling, the young constabulary officer from Maraudane, has been abducted and confined on a ship bound for distant shores, where her captors have nefarious plans for her. With fortune and ingenuity, Corey escapes, but finds herself stuck in a sprawling metropolis on the other side of the world, the Mokasa. The Mokasa is a test unlike anything Corey has ever faced. She doesn't speak the language, doesn't know the culture, and is forbidden from leaving the city until she pays off a colossal debt. Even if she's able to find decent work, it will take her years to settle her accounts and get home. But Corey Welling is not to be cowed. She will work, fight, and hold her chin high. As a fringe faction of the apocalyptic faith spreads throughout the city, threatening the new friends she has sworn to protect, she'll continue to stand up for the values instilled in her as a member of the Maraudane Constabulary, even if, as her darkest day approaches, she has to do it alone. Marshall's books, they're very much into the world building. He's very much into the cultures, very, very detailed about that sort of thing. And he also writes, I think, what you might call hope punk, right? All of his characters are noble. It's not the grimdark thing. There are people who are fighting for what's right. And so that's maybe something refreshing in these grim times, right? So, An Unintended Voyage by Marshall Ryan Maresca will be available from Daw Books on November the 2nd. And finally, we're going to wrap up with something that I am super crazy excited about, because anytime Nnedi Oforigor comes out with a book, I get excited. She's wonderful, a very reliable writer, I have to say. This is her new novel, Noor, and it comes out November the 9th, and it says, from African futurist luminary Nnedi Oforigor comes a new science fiction novel of intense action and thoughtful rumination on biotechnology, destiny, and humanity in a near-future Nigeria. Onwuli Okwudili prefers to be called AO. To her, these initials have always stood for artificial organism. AO has never really felt natural, and that's putting it lightly. Her parents spent most of the days before she was born praying for her peaceful passing, because even in utero she was wrong. But she lived. Then came the car accident years later that disabled her even further. Yet, instead of viewing her strange body the way the world views it, as freakish, unnatural, even the work of the devil, AO embraces all that she is, a woman with a ton of major and necessary body augmentations. And then one day she goes to her local market and everything goes wrong. Once on the run, she meets a Fulani herdsman named DNA, and the race against time across the deserts of northern Nigeria begins. In a world where all things are streamed, everyone is watching the reckoning of the murderess and the terrorist, and the saga of the wicked woman and mad man unfold. This fast-paced, relentless journey of tribe, destiny, body, and the wonderland of technology revels in the fact that the future sometimes isn't so predictable. Expect the unaccepted. All right, then. Sounds like a very similar premise to Remote Control, right? You have, a young woman whose body has been altered by technology sort of against her will, and she's trying to make her way, right? So Noor from Nnedi Oforigor from Daw Books on November the 9th. So there you have it. That's all I've got for this edition of the Mailbag. You guys know the drill. Light up the comments. Let me know which of these looks most interesting and exciting to you, and which you would like to see me prioritize for review. Otherwise, if you enjoyed watching, please hit that like button, share the video far and wide with all of your SFF reading friends, and above all, please subscribe if you have not done so. That is how the channel grows. We are inching towards 10,000. Let's kick it up a notch, shall we, guys? Thanks. You can also support the channel at my TeePublic store and at my Patreon, where recruits into Wink's Army get little perks like early access to some of my videos. I use the Patreon money to pay Matt Olson, my brilliantly gifted thumbnail artist, the fellow who did all the animation for me in my Space Opera September video. He's the other part of the team. The other part of the SFF180 team, the guy behind the scenes who you don't see, but you see his work. And so I'm very blessed to have him, and thank you all for helping me out, those of you who are my Patreons. I also want to thank all the rest of you for being the very best viewers in all of BookTube, and until I see all of you next time, please stay safe and healthy, and happy reading.